evening. You're watching RTD's English News Edition. Those are the top stories. Djibouti has been chosen among the first 10 countries in the Good Doing Business program. On the international news, Texas enthusiasts, at least 26 dead. Those are top stories, and thanks for joining us in our newsroom. The Prime Minister sponsored today approving and raising awareness on the efforts of Djibouti government to improve the business climate and attract investors. A document called Doing Business, issued by the specialized organization of the World Bank on the performance of the state in economic and commercial. Djibouti ranks among the top 10 who have undertaken the necessary reforms to boost their economy. Djibouti is thus one of the countries that meet the indicators and regulations of this body. Doing Business is a report from the World Bank that analyzes and evaluates annually the commercial activities of the member states. The report was recently published. The senior officials involved took part in this meeting, including the Minister to the Presidency in charge of Investment, Anglais, Budget Minister Bode Ahmed Roble, the Minister of Commerce, the Minister of Communication, Abdi Yusuf Suge, the Minister of Higher Education and Research. Also were present the Secretary General of the government, Mohammed Hassan, the diplomats posted in Djibouti, and many businessmen. The Investment Minister Ali Gayle Bakr said the government has, in his speech, has always been concerned about improving the business climate to support growth and good governance, he said. And today the fact speaks of itself. The Doing Business results published by the International Monetary Fund is today putting the lights on the tireless efforts of the government has undertaken. And the Prime Minister took the floor, said the will of the government is to improve good governance so that development initiated by the President of the Republic is sustainable. Indeed, growth has been strong and undeniable for 10 years. The effects are visible and the numbers confirm it, he said. The rate of economic growth is well above the rate of population growth, the Prime Minister indicated. It is therefore important that all the elements be implemented so that the fruits of growth can benefit the entire population. It is the government's will, has insisted the Prime Minister. National solidarity actions are one way, actions to improve good governance are another. Among these are the administrative reforms, and especially those that concern us today, the reforms to create jobs, has concluded the Prime Minister. The parliamentary delegation led by the President of the National Assembly, Muhammad Ali Ahmed, continues interacting with the people of the interior regions. After the southern regions, they were traveling this week to Obok in Tajora. The President of the National Assembly reaffirmed on this occasion his belief that the people must take charge with the support of the regional councils they are elected. Under the authority of the head of the National Assembly, a consultation was held in order of bringing together the municipal councillors, representatives of the civil society, women representatives, and the customary authorities from all over the region. During this meeting, in addition to the grievances, all the participants were able to discuss about the various activities carried out as well as the challenges to be met with a view to effective decentralization. On the other hand, the customary chiefs as well as the elders have asked as a priority the NAB to support and follow their grievances at the level of the government and to transmit their message to the head of state, Ismail Murgile. And in his message, President Hamad urged young and old to participate in the development efforts side by side with the state. According to him, one should no longer adopt a wait-and-see attitude, but participate in development and construction efforts. For him, the welfare state cannot continue to work by itself. For him, mentalities must change today. The state is also represented by an active civil society, by these men and women devoted to the national cause. He pleaded for more civility in the maintenance of the public goods of communication roads and health centers as well as schools. And continuing with the national news, under the chairmanship of the Honorable Sharmaki Musa Arwe, the Finance, General, Economy and Planning Committee examined this Sunday, November 5 at 9 a.m. in the National Assembly Committee Room number 1, draft law number 170 of the year 17, finalizing the state budget of the year 2016. The government was represented by the Minister of Budget, Mr. Bodi Ahmed Robli, accompanied by senior officials of the various departments of his ministry. In addition to the members of the Finance Committee, many parliamentarians participated in the meeting, and after a long, lively and fruitful debate, the commissioners gave their approval to forward this bill to the next plenary session. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation spokesman of the government, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, yesterday received in the afternoon a delegation of ambassadors led by Tisham Toka, Ambassador of Ethiopia in Belgium, and this delegation composed of 4 ambassadors and have already had an official working visit in IGAD. Accompanied by the Executive Secretary of IGAD, Mahboub Malin, the delegation included respectively Tisham Toga, Ambassador of Ethiopia, Johnson Wery, Ambassadors of Kenya, Ali Said Fagi, Ambassador of Somalia, and finally our Ambassador in Belgium, Omar Abdi Said. You know that these ambassadors are accredited in Belgium and represent their countries in the European Union, and the meeting was held in climate of trust and focused mainly on the friendship and cooperation relations of the countries of the East African region and means to strengthen them further. The 39th session of the UNESCO General Conference is taking place in Paris. The Djibouti delegation led by Mr. Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud, Minister of National Education and Training and President of the National Commission for Education, Science and Culture, begins the final phase of its mission, which ends with the intervention of the President of the National Commission during the General Policy Debate. This working visit was punctuated by parallel events consisting of roundtables and meetings on topics as varied as the promise of education, cross views on objectives and challenges, or that of the ocean we need for the future we want, he said. During this visit, the minister was able to convey the greetings of His Excellency the President of the Republic. He also reiterated his congratulations for his investment and tireless efforts to promote the values of humanity of UNESCO. And at the end of this mission, the Minister of National Education and Training, Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud, of whom the top of the UNESCO platform, delivered an important national declaration speech for the participation of the 39th session. The minister carried the voice of Djibouti by illuminating the positioning of Djibouti in all its fullness. By my country, he said, is beyond the Horn of Africa sub-region, suffering from the consequences of the conflicts in the region, the risks of violence, extremism, terrorism and fundamentalism. We support actions to promote cultural diversity, acceptance of others in the religious, cultural, social or political differences. He said, the Republic of Djibouti supports and encourages our organization to support initiatives combating violent extremism through education, and this team deserves special attention on our part, and it goes without saying that we cannot fight ignorance. It is only through education, has concluded the minister. The Minister of Labor in charge of the administration reform, Hassan Idriss Samire, received this Monday the Ambassador of the People's Republic of China in Djibouti, Mr. Fu Wakyong, in a meeting in which took part the Secretary General of the Ministry of Labor, Abdullah Ali Mohammed, and the Inspector General of Labor, Abdi Farah Idle, and the Economic Counselor of the Chinese Embassy, Mrs. Gi Hua. The purpose of this meeting was to explore ways and means of strengthening labor cooperation with Chinese companies based in Djibouti. To do this, the Djibouti Minister of Labor, Hassan Idriss Samire, has expressed his willingness to provide young Djiboutians employment opportunities. It was a question of exploring with the Chinese diplomat and his close advisor the hiring opportunities that could be offered by Chinese companies, but also the Chinese military base. At the center of the discussions, also the transfer of competence for the labor force of Djibouti for posts requiring specific qualification, and at the end of these two parties have agreed to further strengthen their partnership in order to take full advantage of Djibouti as part of the increase in Chinese investment in our country. Continuing with the national news, a delegation led by the Executive Secretary of Honors, Mr. Hussein Hassan Dirar, and the representative of the HCR in Djibouti, Abdullahi Barri, yesterday and today, in November 5, in city of Ali Sabih, this delegation was made up of men and women representatives from the donor countries dispute on the refugee issues, namely Australia, US and Ireland, Belgium, Denmark, Luxembourg, Finland, Switzerland, Canada, England and Germany. This delegation first met with the prefect of the city of Ali Sabih, and who immediately explained to the representative of the donor countries the shoulder he gives to honors in the management of refugees camps, both at the level of security in this city but also at the level of the socio-economic services, while remembering that the two largest of the refugees, to know Ali Adi in Holhol, is in Ali Sabih. The delegation then spoke with the sub-prefect of the region, who explained to them the services that the sub-prefecture offers to these refugees, namely the issue of birth certificates for newborns born in these camps. On the international scene, U.S. Air Force veteran who fatally shot at least 26 people in a rural Texas church during Sunday services took his own life after a shootout with residents, the local sheriff said on Monday. The gunman, who had been thrown out of the military for assaulting his wife and child, wounded at least 20 others during the rampage in the White Steeples First Baptist Church in the small town of Sutherland Springs, after the gunman, dressed in black tactile gear and firing an assault rifle, left the church. Two armed local residents pursued him in vehicles. The chase ended when the gunman crashed his car and then shot himself, Wilson County Sheriff Joy told CBS News in an interview on Monday morning. At this time, we believe that they had a self-inflicted gunshot wound, Tech said, and the suspect was identified him as Devin Patrick, late 26, multiple media reported, citing law enforcement officials. And that's all for tonight's news. Thank you for joining us on RTD and have a good night.